to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 113. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
but that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we are taking a little holiday break from guests, and we're celebrating New Year's today.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! Goodbye, 2020. Nobody
Oh,
wanted
boy.
you anyway.
You know, I think people have been saying this for a long time, but I'll be really curious what New Year's celebrations look like this year on a number of levels. One, things are going deeper and deeper into lockdown, so
Yeah.
that's exciting. I don't think there will be very many big city celebrations that often happen with fireworks and
Yeah.
big gatherings. But then two, I think people will be perfectly happy to see 2020 end.
Oh, yeah.
More
Oh,
so
for
than
sure.
excited about the next year, more excited just that this year is over.
Yes.
Although there will be nothing different on January 1st, 2021.
I know. I think the difference, though, is it wasn't the year that all these things originated.
Yep.
You know, like
Yep.
there's so many years I could ask you, like, oh, what significant things happened in the world or in your life in 2011, and who knows if you would remember specifics from that year or not. You
Yeah.
might, but
Yeah.
probably not. For probably most
No.
years in your life, other than like when you graduate or
Mhm.
get married or different things like that, you're not going to remember those things. But we will always remember what happened in 2020.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And what is still happening in 2020?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, guess what? Christmas. Nope. Like,
Oh my gosh. So speaking of Christmas and travel, we're recording this before Christmas, even though it's going to be released after Christmas. And we being my family are in the process of trying to figure out how to do travel and Christmas and safe for COVID all at the same time. Because my sister lives in LA and she and her family usually come up every other year. And this is the year.
And are they still coming?
As of recording date right now, which is December 9th, 2020, yes. However, me and my sisters have been doing multiple calls over the last week and a half, trying to figure out how to actually make it safe to do. So trying to figure out, okay, so if we self-quarantine this many days before everybody comes and everybody goes and gets a COVID test, since it takes, 5 days after you've been exposed before you could test positive. So we have to make sure that we have all of these different things trying to map out to see, is there even a way that we can do this safely? And depending on the moment when we have been talking to each other, sometimes the answer seemed to be yes, and sometimes the answer seemed to be no.
Wow.
So we've got our next call tomorrow night to try and figure it out. But one of the other things that's complicated for us, and I mean, this is true, I think, for a lot of families, is we've got multiple families because
Households.
that, but also
Oh,
full on
gatherings.
multiple
gatherings.
families, because our parents are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got each separate family, like family side, like my mom and her remarried family, my
Yeah.
dad and his remarried family. And those are their own big giant groups.
Yeah, there's
of
so
people.
many touch points at that
There are.
point. Yeah.
There are. So So we'll see. I don't know if we're going to get together or not. We've all talked about different things, and I've said if everybody does these things, and I've listed specific things, then I personally would feel comfortable getting together. But if any one of those things doesn't happen, I will not be participating in Christmas.
That's what my sister and her husband did for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then because of that, my husband and I opted out so that everyone else could gather.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so it was something where it's like, that's the most people can gather if he and I don't join, essentially. And we were fine with that. I mean, they're local. So, you miss, I don't know. I think in the grand scheme of things, missing a couple gatherings around holidays, like we're going to be okay, So, yeah.
Yep.
But with family traveling,
Mm-hmm.
that is more complicated and more of a bummer than if that doesn't work out.
Yes. So.
And speaking of, Ryan, today we're going to look ahead to the bright and shining and so far perfect year of 2021.
It's true. Nothing bad has happened in 2021 yet.
I know. It's so great. And we're just going to talk about what's next in the world of travel. And one of the things we want to talk about, and I would love to ask you, is what is that like for you personally looking ahead? And the reason I want to ask that too is that may or may not involve you seeing your sister in a couple months.
Correct. Yeah. As I've talked about already on the podcast, this previous February, so February 2020, before we all knew that COVID was a major thing, like we knew it was happening over in China, I believe, but I don't think most of us here in the US paid much attention at that point, even though most of the research that I've read says they're pretty sure it was here in the US, but definitely by January, possibly even as early as December of 2019.
I have seriously wondered if Daryl had it around the time of our wedding.
It's possible.
He was sick for a long time with flu symptoms and a severe cough. And doctors several times did not know what he had. And it just didn't go away for a long time. And the cough lingered. And then this year, learning about COVID symptoms, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder.
It's possible. Also, last year's flu was really bad. So it also could have been that. And as we've talked about before, so I went to visit my sister in LA in February, and we all got sick. And I got what I would describe as fitting the symptoms of COVID. Now, whether it was the flu or it was COVID, I don't know. But I definitely had a fever. And after I got home, it was like a high fever, like 101, 102. And I also had the weird cough at the same time, which I don't think I've ever had before.
Yeah.
So who knows? It could have been the flu. It could have been something else. It could have been COVID.
But also,
for all I know.
it lines up with, especially with you going to Southern California. Because I think it was there a little earlier, wasn't it?
I think maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know that we know for sure. I don't know for sure. But all that to say, the trip did not go as we had planned. It was supposed to be a week of 4 days in Disneyland. We did a bunch of episodes here on our podcast in prepping for my trip to go to Disneyland, and went down, and I did basically 2 days instead of 4, and I did them by myself instead of with other people. And then everything had to get cut short, and my sister was miserable the whole time. And so we'd said we were going to do a do-over trip. We were going to do it again. And we talked about a bunch of different dates and decided on the following February, which is upcoming now in just a couple months, February 2021. And I've bought tickets and already requested the dates off of work. But I got to decide if I'm actually going to go or not. And right now, I don't know. I've gone back and forth. I think part of it will depend on where we're at in February, because a lot can change between now and then.
Yeah.
The tickets are, I guess, not technically refundable, but there's no cancellation fee. So if I cancel it, I just get the credit for all of those dollars that I can use again for another flight. Like I don't get the
So,
money back, but it stays in my
transferable,
account.
I
Maybe
think.
that's the word for
I
it.
think that's the word for it.
Yeah. So, and that's partly why I went ahead and bought the tickets was, well, I'm going to go back down there at some point.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
that's why
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's
You're like, obviously, I'm going to fly again. So, like, as long as I can
Yeah.
still use those dollars to fly,
Yeah.
then, like, we're fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like well, I hope I'm not going to never fly again. But whether or not it's in February, I don't know. Because one of the things that has happened recently that is super fascinating to me as a science guy is all the vaccine stuff.
Mm.
And I just saw today actually that Canada just approved one of the vaccines, their equivalent
Wow.
of the FDA. The UK did either earlier this week or last week. So some of the initial quick approvals are starting to happen around the world. Here in the US, the FDA hasn't approved anything yet, but I have a feeling if other countries have, that it is likely to happen eventually here. And once vaccines start going out, I think it's going to shift things. Now, not immediately and not super quickly, because healthcare workers are going to get it first and all of those things. But in some of the stuff that I've been reading, one of the, definitely not the first line, but like second or third line people who could potentially get vaccines are teachers,
Mm.
which I didn't even think about
That makes
until I
sense,
started
though.
reading about it. But people want students to go back to school.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
we
that's-
can't do that if teachers
That is
can't be in
such a
school.
huge impact on our society right now.
Yep.
Is kids
Yep.
all having to learn remotely. Yeah.
Yep. So it's possible, and I mean, I haven't seen anything like this. To me, it makes sense to prioritize elementary teachers over secondary teachers, because I think it's more important for younger students to go back sooner than it is older students.
Mm. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a limited resource. So, but at some point, I may be on the earlier side of the ability to get a vaccine, which I think might influence my choices
Yeah.
for travel as well. Because
Mhm.
I know if I've been vaccinated by February, then I know I can't be a risk to anybody else when I travel.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sure that I would be vaccinated by February. I think it's probably more likely to be March or April before that would happen. But who knows? There's, I think, 3 potential vaccines right now that are all up for varying levels of approval.
Yeah, it's honestly like the timeline is anybody's guess because how quickly it'll be produced and distributed and all
Well, the
that.
production's already started.
Well, I think like I don't know, it's like hard to picture what kind of time span that will take though. You know, as far as like just before like not like frontline workers, but like you or then like any just person, you know, could get it.
Well,
and it's like I know there's such a high level of desperation for it that I'm sure that's going to drive the speed, you know.
Yeah. I did read an article, I believe they were saying Moderna, which is one of the 3 companies that's made their vaccine. Their prediction was, depending on obviously individual states and how they roll it out, they thought as far as numbers of vaccine doses available to people, they could have gotten through all of the like high risk groups, you know, so people who live in like assisted living and nursing homes and the healthcare workers and whoever those people are, and be ready for general distribution by April.
Cool. Wow.
Like that was their prediction. Obviously it's one company. There's a lot that can happen that you don't know for sure what that could be. But to me, I was like, okay, if that's what one company is saying, and we've got 2 or 3 companies potentially working on it, to me, April seems like that might be a realistic prediction, which then for us in travel tells me summer travel might actually be possible in 2021 in some form. I think things by summer might be able to start opening up both locally and internationally. And I don't think we'll be back to quote unquote normal by then. But I think it may be significantly more open than this last summer has been.
That would be so nice.
Wouldn't that be
summer
amazing?
That was rough. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because you've been good about doing a lot of local travel. If
Yes.
I hadn't gone to LA to visit my sister in February, I would have done no travel in 2020. Because since everything shut down, I have not traveled. I've not gone anywhere, even like a weekend trip.
Wow. Yeah, and
Which is
I've
really
done
sad.
a lot of driving, a lot of road trip type of travel, varying
Yeah.
lengths and distances.
Yeah.
But it was weird reflecting for me that 1 year ago, as of when we're recording, I was about to go on my honeymoon.
Yep.
And that's the last time
Congratulations.
I was on a plane.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you. But that was the last time I was on a plane, was a year ago.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't going to plan anything like too major for 2020 with travel, but like I thought I'd be on a plane at some point, and so
Yeah.
yeah, that's weird being like, it's been a year since I've been on an airplane. Like, ooh, I don't know the last time I was able to say that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are your thoughts.
Those are my thoughts around travel.
What's
I
your
think,
deadline? When do you have to decide by as far as getting your money transferred and all that?
That is a good question. I don't know, but I don't think before February. I think as long as it's a week or two before, I should probably look into that probably. But I don't think that there's a huge time constraint on it. The other thing is I've gotten email updates from the airline saying that they've changed multiple times, that they've changed my flight. I was originally leaving in the evening. Well,
Okay.
now it's an afternoon departure.
Isn't that weird when that happens?
Well, it makes sense now with COVID stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're adjusting. But for me, that makes a big difference because I picked the evening flight so I wouldn't have to take another day off work.
Yeah.
And so you switch it from an evening flight to an afternoon flight. I can't take the flight now.
Oh, yeah. No, I am so strategic in my flight times. I think one time I had a flight time change and I was like, that's a possibility because I didn't even know that was a thing until the first time that happened to me. So that, yeah, I've done like late night flights so that I can not skip work. Wow. Interesting.
And like for me, I can't just change my plans at the last minute.
Yeah.
Because I can only take off specific days and I have to get approval to do that. I can't just, the flight changed, so now I have to, whatever. It may be if the flight changes and I can't take that day off, I may not get to go, right? It's like one of those. So that's also partly why I haven't dug super deep into it yet, because who knows, it may change another 3 times. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens before I make any decisions. But what about you and your travel plans? Can we even call them plans for 2021?
I don't think they're plans. I think at this point they're dreams.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing planned at this point.
Mhm.
I don't have any dates. I don't have anything booked. This coming weekend is the last anything I have booked. We're going away, just a local place for our anniversary. And after that, I don't have tickets or hotel rooms or Airbnbs or anything. That's weird. But I've kind of been indulging in that recently, and we've done several weekends away, so that's been really fun. But so I think thinking about a larger trip, we have my stepson for a week in the summer, and it's not a set week. We kind of agree upon when it's going to be. And I would like to do a trip then. And that's what we did. A road trip, which we originally were going to go do a road trip, so it didn't change
Right.
from a flight. We were going to go to Yosemite, and then that was
I
canceled
remember.
last minute.
Yep.
Even though they were open, they were doing 50% capacity, and so we had to change. But we went to several states and did a good road trip. It was hard to find bathrooms on the roads sometimes, but and so I think regardless of COVID, I would choose a road trip again to do with Jack. So I think that will be our summer trip. Will be some sort of a road trip. I don't know where though. And so I'm starting to think about that. And then I think we want to do like a long weekend in the spring. Daryl's birthday is in April and mine is in May. And what we've been doing is like planning a fun little weekend for the other person for their birthday. And Daryl suggested we just do one thing that's maybe like a 4-day weekend, something a little bit bigger. And he, a month ago or so, suggested we fly somewhere. And I looked at some options and I was like, I think we should drive somewhere, so like, so we're thinking about that. And then, I mean, I don't know, for our 2-year anniversary, if the end of 2021 is looking better, how fun would it be if I did like honeymoon plan A or something like that, and like did like a trip, but that's a year away and that's like daydreaming at this point. And that's like, or maybe that's 2 years from now. I don't know. But
right.
So that's kind of what travel is looking like for me this year, is probably more road trips. So I'm at the moment, because I considered Boston in the spring. We talked about going to Boston, and some factors against it for us were, is it really worth the flight length for a 4-day weekend?
Yeah.
And maybe, but between that and knowing that Boston was super locked down this year, like my friend of the show, Michaela, lives in Boston, and they ran away to New Hampshire for several months because they were just like, let's get out of this place. And so they went and stayed at a cabin on a lake or something. Oh my gosh, I was
that's rough.
That. I know. It also seemed very like East Coast to like summer somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like old school East Coast.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and now we need to have her on the podcast. They are spending several months in the winter in a cabin in Vermont in the mountains so they can like ski on their lunch breaks.
Oh my gosh.
They are doing this working remotely, right? I'm telling you.
Wow.
So anyway, just hearing from her like, oh yeah, we try to get out of Boston. I was like, do I want to go too? Boston's pretty high on our list. I've been there. Daryl has not. But I think it's a city he will like a lot. He's excited about it. But we're like, okay, probably not this spring. And then I thought, let's do a 5-day trip and go to Alaska, because I'm getting all these ads on Instagram about this Alaska railroad, and I really want to go sometime.
What's
there is
the
a
Alaska
train
Railroad?
Oh my gosh, Ryan!
I've not heard of this.
So cool. Okay, so I've been in Alaska one time in middle school, and my family did. I think it was 2 weeks. So we did like inland, and then also a cruise where we got to see glaciers. So we got to see a lot of the aspects of the things you want to see in Alaska. And I know Daryl's going to love Alaska. And I think as an adult, I really want to go back. And since we live in Washington, we'll probably go more than once.
Sure.
So I was thinking, well, if we're going to go more than once, then when we go, we don't have to try to do everything. But the aspect that I was really interested in is fly into Anchorage, hang out in Anchorage, take a train. It's like an 8-hour train from Anchorage to Denali National Park. And if you do the nicer tickets on this train, you're on the second story, and the ceiling and the windows are like a dome, like a continuous glass dome. So the view, I think, would be, a train in Alaska just sounds awesome. And then you can see the park. And entering the park by car, I think it's usually not even permitted. You like have to be on a tour bus or something, but now they are like limiting it. Like you can do like a lottery thing. So when you go to Denali, I think you kind of have to sign up for something or other anyway. And then you can take the same train from Denali up north to Fairbanks and then see Fairbanks and then fly out. So like 5-day trip right there. Looks great. And then once again, it was like, do we really want to fly somewhere in the spring when we don't have anything booked at this point? And then also I was like, okay, I started looking at the finances and I was like, we could do that if that's like our trip for the year. But it kind of adds up quickly between like, I mean, train tickets aren't cheap, you know? And so it would be a really cool experience. It was like, well, maybe we should go to Alaska when that's like the trip we want to take that year.
Yeah.
And so at this point, we're talking about going to Bend, Oregon. Because
Oh,
that's like
fun.
5 to 6 hour drive, I think, from here in Seattle, around that. And we've both been to Bend, but not together. And so, and we love breweries a lot, and we love hiking in the outdoors. And so I've been looking at Airbnbs, and there are a lot of really reasonably priced ones. And Bend is so fun too, because you can stay in the mountains and be like right next to the city. And so that's what we're talking about at this point for that trip. So, but I wanted to share about those other options because first of all, people need to know about this Alaska Railroad. And really, if one of our listeners could go on it and then tell me how it went and if it's worth it, I would like a report.
I'm looking at the website right now. It looks pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at prices because I don't really want to know.
Yeah. Well, and the difference between like this one ticket or like essentially, I guess, like the first class ticket or that upstairs ticket. Like,
right, the Gold Star service or the Adventure class.
Oh, yes. Adventure class was like a couple hundred a person. And then the Gold Star was like several hundred more. So like it really bumps up. But then I think like meals are included. But the view just looks so cool from up there too.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where I'm like, maybe that's worth a splurge. Like if that's the experience, you know.
Here's the other thing I'm seeing on here, Cheryl, which I don't know if you looked about this. Did you know that they have themed like experiences?
What?
Did you see that?
No.
They have they call them special event trains. So they have the ski train, right, where you can go skiing.
I don't care.
They have the Easter train, which is a family-friendly train ride with the Easter Bunny.
Cute.
The fair train, where they have their state fair theme.
Oh, that sounds like an old musical or something.
Right? The Great Alaska Beer Train. Nothing pairs better with Glacier Brewhouse brews and bites than viewing along the Turnagain Arm.
That's the one I'm going to go on.
There's a family fun train.
Cool.
There's the Hoodoo Choo Choo.
What?
The Hoodoo Choo Choo. A train with a funny name, but seriously good brews and views, featuring Fairbanks' own Hoodoo Brewing and Lavelle's Bistro.
Oh, great.
The Kids Halloween Train.
Cute.
And the Holiday Train.
Oh.
They have a Christmas train, Cheryl.
Christmas train. I want to go on a Christmas train.
Right?
Oh.
I don't know if you want to be in Alaska in December necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
But you'd be inside.
Yeah. Well, that's what sounds cool about being on a train in Alaska is getting all those views, being out, like, even away from the road and everything.
Yep.
But being indoors.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, being on a train could be really fun in the wintertime.
Yeah.
If it's during the daylight. You know.
And I don't know that those are necessarily, I think they might be just a day trip, not that whole route that you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, because I'm looking at the price that it lists here, and it says for the holiday train, adults are $70.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wonder if that's like an evening, you know, or something like that.
Yeah. But that could still be, if you timed the whole thing,
Yes.
you might be able to do, because it looks like it's not one continuous like rail. Maybe it's all one railroad, but it talks, the website talks about different like legs or arms or sections.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe one section does the holiday train. And so you could do that and then continue
Yeah.
on for the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then a way to make it a little cheaper is they also offer buses that take the same route essentially. And
Mm.
so like I could always do the fun train from Anchorage to Denali and then do the bus
Mhm.
from Denali to Fairbanks just to get there, you know.
Yep.
Or something like that. Oh, fun. Yeah. So, I mean, at some point, I want to be on a train in Alaska. That sounds like a really fun experience.
That does sound like a fun way to experience Alaska.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, my family went on a cruise in Alaska. That was also so cool because you get to get like up
Mhm.
to the glaciers and
Yep.
everything. And that's very
Yep.
cool. But I don't think this is the year. And again, it was just like, am I really going to choose to get plane tickets right now? I mean, it's so tempting because there's these deals going on. And
Mhm.
like, I have an Alaska credit card. And so I have this like annual perk of getting a companion.
Oh, the companion fare.
Yeah. And that was, I think it's
Mhm.
round trip for $99. And so I was like, man, I want to use that. It's like, well, I don't know. I think I need to stick with road trips for
Yeah.
now. And then this summer, we're thinking of, well, maybe. Right now, I'm thinking about Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Oh, Wyoming. Yeah.
I'm trying to think about a place because what went well on our road trip was when we were in like an Airbnb house or like some sort of
Right.
Airbnb where like we had the space because then we could kind of act like we're home but in another city, which worked really well with a
Mhm.
kid. And
Yeah.
he did great in the car, but I think the day after day of continuing to move stops wasn't as
Mhm.
great. And so
Yeah.
I want to go somewhere where we can drive there and then like unpack and be there for
Yep.
several days or so.
Yep.
And so, and have a lot of options of activities that we don't have to book in advance. Just knowing our options and options that we could even repeat. You're like, oh, that was great. Let's do it again tomorrow. And so I'm
Mhm.
trying to figure out what that is. Like, what are the places you can go to with a kid in elementary school that like is going to be a success like that? That's not like an all-inclusive resort because when I Google it, I get all these ads for like stay at this place, and I'm like, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for like a city or a region that
Mhm.
has some good options for us. And so I don't know. I think Jackson Hole could be a cool option for that.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
could be a really cool thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm considering right now.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I think that you're looking at just doing a road trip because I just very recently came across an article online for something that I hadn't heard of before. Have you heard of the digital travel pass?
No.
So this is an article from Forbes. And again, we're recording this on the 9th of December and it was just posted on the 7th. So 2 days ago. So this is very recent. And it says you may need a digital travel pass to fly in 2021. So there may
Wow.
be some additional requirements, which once I started thinking about it, I realized, yeah, that makes sense. Once vaccines are out, I could totally see them requiring
Yeah.
that, hey, we only want people flying who have been vaccinated because
Yep.
then airlines can start booking
Yeah.
fuller flights again, which I think they would like.
And not wearing masks and
Yep.
filling the middle seat
Yep.
and all that.
Yep. Yep. Whereas, of course, there's a part of me that would still love to fly during all the COVID stuff because I much prefer to fly with fewer people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, and so I think like if I were in your shoes and already had something booked, I'd be still
Mhm.
hoping I could go. But I think where I've arrived is I still don't feel like it's wise to buy plane tickets right now.
Yeah.
Considering I don't need to go anywhere and I can
Mhm.
come up with options to travel that don't involve flying. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And again, that makes sense. Cause yeah, I'm stuck in this place of, do I go? Do I not? And part of it's, I mean, do I go just to see my sister? Cause again, at this point, who knows what's going to happen for Christmas? I might get
Yeah.
to see her. I might not get to see her.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible she comes up and I don't see her.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is one of the possibilities that we talked about. Not one that we want, but I mean, if that's what it takes for us to, be safe, then, then that's what we'll do. But then does the redo, and I plan to talk to her about this once she's up, and, whether that means in person or virtually or whatever, but she won't be working and, I won't be working. We'll have time to actually talk. But do we want to do the redo in February anyway? So even if I can fly, and even if that is something that I can do,
Yeah.
is that when we want to do it? Because things are still not going to be open.
Yeah, that would be a different sort of trip than what you were hoping
Mhm.
for with your redo trip.
Because there will definitely not be a redo as far as going to Disneyland like we had planned.
Yeah.
Because Disneyland, I would be shocked if Disneyland is open by February.
Oh
of
yeah, because it's
2021.
in California.
It's in
So-
California, and all of the requirements that the state has put to open theme parks are so incredibly stringent. I don't think there is a way for them to be met before widespread vaccination happens.
Yeah.
So maybe by summer, Disneyland might be open by summer of
Yeah.
2021, depending on, how that distribution goes. But I don't think it'll be open. So then that's the question. Is the redo trip, does that include Disneyland or not? Because if it includes Disneyland, then that's a pretty easy, it won't be February and I won't be going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and maybe that's just like, this is not the redo trip, but
Yep.
it's a chance to see your sister. And so
Yep.
you're still going to go.
Yep.
It could be pretty inexpensive of a trip if you're staying with her and
Yep.
not paying for all your Disneyland expenses and everything.
Oh, right. Yep.
Then-
And I've
and
also
you already
thought
bought
about
the
cutting it.
ticket.
I did. I already bought the ticket. I've also thought about just cutting it shorter too, because I am scheduled to take several days off work. It's an
Mm.
extra long weekend because it's around midwinter break. And so I could just not take those days off work too. So still go down for the longer weekend,
Yeah.
but then just come home. And that way I've got those other days to use for other things, because
Yeah.
we're not going to be doing all of those other events. Because it was going to be not only me, but my other sister and my mom were going to fly down too.
Oh.
Like it was going to
okay.
be, and it was going to be my sister who lives in Washington has a son and he's never been to Disneyland. So it was going to be his first trip to Disneyland. It was going to be all of these things, and it
Mhm.
cannot be those things.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the other thing I've been thinking about is spending vacation days. Like, when do you choose
Mhm.
to spend them, and when do you?
Yeah.
It's the same with money. If it's like, oh, if I can't do these cool travel things, maybe
Yep.
it's a better time to save for future
Yep.
travel. And it
Mhm.
kind of feels the same with vacation days. When
Yep.
should they be spent?
Yep. And that's partly why I haven't done any travel this year once everything shut down. Because I mean, yeah, I could do a weekend trip, do an Airbnb or whatever like you guys have done, but I think I've opted for saving that money.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, for the most part, I'd be doing it myself. Right? I
Yeah.
would just be going away myself for a weekend. I'm like, nah, it's not worth it to me, because I'm definitely
Yeah.
not getting together with other people
Mm-hmm.
during this time.
Yeah,
'cause
so
we're
then
supposed to
there's
be
not
staying
like the
separate.
relationship aspect to the
Right.
trip. It's just
Right.
like you going and seeing the things,
Yep.
and then you're like, but I'm fine.
Yeah, like if everything was open and I could go and do all of the things, then I might be interested in doing that. But since things are closed or partially closed or everything's just funky anyway, yeah, for me it hasn't been worth it. And I think that's probably going to be the case for me in travel until things really open up again.
Yeah.
So I think if I do the trip in February, that'll probably be the only one until maybe summer, if
Mhm.
things open up in summer.
Yeah. So, what about other people? I'm sure
Ugh.
people are daydreaming like us about
Yep.
the travel they can take
Yep.
and probably having similar thoughts about what should they book, and if they book something, where should they go, and what's it
Yep.
going to be like. So I've looked up a couple things, and I don't know, like, I want to share them because I think there's some interesting thoughts here, but it's also kind of funny because I don't know, like, how good of advice it is if someone wants to book something today. But I don't know if anybody should book something today.
I don't think so.
But like Forbes came out with a list of the 20 best places to travel in 2021. And so I'm looking through this list and I want to share it with you.
Okay.
I must say right away, you can tell this is assuming like after things open up again is what they're talking about. So that feels like a
Okay.
different list to me than if we're like, okay, let's say everything's the same. Where could you go? You know, like what's open now.
Yeah.
So, but I think it just is fun to hear about. So the first place they have listed is Kenya. And the reason
okay.
behind that is that Kenya is always a classic, and its landscapes are the definition of wide open, which makes the country more appealing than ever during the time of social distancing.
And Africa as a continent has had relatively low COVID numbers. I don't know specifically Kenya, but a lot of the countries in Africa have not increased in their COVID numbers the way a lot of other countries and continents have. And I think some of that is, things are more spread out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and and I think with anything, I think it's like if COVID is still happening in some shape or form, then something nature related is going to be your friend.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the next one on this list, Costa Rica. It says Costa Rica has maintained one of the lowest COVID-19 fatality rates in Latin America, and its government has been recognized for successful management and containment of the virus. So when the country reopens, this list says on November 1st, which means it should already be open, to all Americans who meet the requirements, travelers will be able to return feeling a sense of confidence. So I don't know if that means Costa Rica is open now.
Yeah, I don't know.
The British Virgin Islands talks about the beaches there, and it says it has a December 1st reopen date to American travelers. New Zealand.
What? I want to go to New Zealand. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, I know, so very much. It says New Zealand was one of the countries that has best dealt with COVID.
Well, New Zealand and Australia, I think they basically, I'm looking at Google Maps, and because they have an overlay that will show you rates, and both Australia and New Zealand are at 0, but they also are letting nobody in the country.
So that's like once it opens to Americans, then.
Yeah.
But it does say like it ticks off all those boxes and holds plenty of appeal for its amazing outdoors and isolated escapes, which is why it's perfect for those traveling as soon as it opens up in 2021.
I'd totally go to New Zealand.
Paris. I think
Really?
the reason is because we miss it.
I was like, what?
It's saying like it's irresistible right now.
Oh, no, it's not.
Mexico beyond the beach.
Yeah.
So the heart of Mexico's interior.
It's like our guest Ray shared about when he was on.
Yes. And Emily.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it says Mexico on the beach also. Slovenia.
Yay!
It says Slovenia has been overlooked by tourists up until now.
Well, that's not entirely true.
It's
When
a
is
top
this article dated?
destination. I mean, pretty recently, I think, because it's about COVID.
That's true.
It's a top destination for 2021 thanks to leading by example in areas like sustainable tourism.
Mm-hmm.
National Geographic recently named it the world's most sustainable country, and its capital, Ljubljana, is known as Europe's green capital.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Shout out for like my friends in Slovenia.
It also says it's a foodie heaven, so I'm on board.
Okay, sure. Although I will say, you and I were talking offline over the weekends, trying to get some stuff ready for an episode,
Uh-huh.
and we ended up finding pictures of Cevapcici,
Oh, I was getting so
And you-
excited.
right? And you're like, wait,
Cool.
what is that? And it's like, oh, that's the Kaimak. Wait, what's that? That's the Ivar. Yep. Yep.
Oh my gosh, it looked really good. Yeah.
It is really good.
I need to try that place in Seattle that has it.
Yeah. Once
Another
things
one?
open again.
Oh yeah, once things open again. Egypt. It says that Egypt
Oh.
reopened to Americans this summer. And our Egypt classes were some of the most popular virtual travel classes. And it's not hard to see why.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
their COVID numbers are way low right now.
The country houses a third of all of the world's antiquities and is home to the only remaining place in the original 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Oh, yeah. The pyramids, right? The pyramids?
The island of Tahiti.
Oh.
Cool.
Let's see if I can even find that. It's out here in the Pacific
Um,
somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it says it's an 8-hour direct flight from Los Angeles or San Francisco. That's not bad.
Where is Tahiti?
And it
There's
is
French
welcoming
Polynesia.
U.S. travelers with no visa or quarantine period required.
Yes, I think I remember hearing that. Oh, Fiji is good. I don't know where Tahiti is.
Rwanda.
Okay, back to Africa.
Uh-huh. Also some stuff about sustainable travel. I don't know how to pronounce this. Qatar.
Oh, yeah.
Qatar.
I've also heard some people say it Qatar, so I don't actually
Okay.
know the correct pronunciation. But
Okay.
yes, I know the country you're talking about.
It has varied landscapes ranging from beaches to desert to the futuristic skyscraping city of Doha. Tunisia. Star
I do actually want
Wars.
to go. Exactly. I do want to go to Tunisia because Star Wars was filmed there.
And Maldives.
Oh, okay.
They're
Fancy.
well, okay, this is funny though. The Maldives isn't a new destination, but in 2021 we anticipate it being more popular than ever. That makes me not want to go there. I don't want to go to the places
super
where tourists
popular
are going to be
places.
flocking
No,
to
that's true.
necessarily. But it says combined recent peace negotiations and incredible new hotels, along with the Maldives being the ultimate for seclusion. Okay, that makes sense then. You can get a socially distant getaway.
Well, here's a question for you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Do you think that once travel opens, people will rush to it? Or do you think there's going to be a delay?
I feel like it's going to be a really weird, like, I feel like all at once there's going to be a lot of people. I think once people feel confident with whatever, like if it's like vaccines are widely available and that's what you need to get on an airplane, then I feel like people are going to start booking stuff, you know? But
Yeah.
I don't know if it's so. I don't know. I think there will be a big like, upsurge, but I don't know like when that will happen. I think there will be a moment when all of a sudden a lot of people are booking it. That's my guess.
Yeah. Do you think for international as well as domestic? Or do you think do you think people are going to be more likely to stick around or more likely to get out of here?
That's such a good question. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people try to rebook whatever trip was canceled this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I could see people just going everywhere again. You know, I could see that just being like people have been dreaming and waiting and maybe saving money and like just on the edges of their seats. Yeah, I think once people feel confident about the safety of it, it's gonna skyrocket. That's my guess. Yeah, what do you think?
I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know either.
Oh, you don't? Oh, I thought you had it all figured out. I guess I can see it multiple ways. And I think part of it too is me. I tend to be a more hesitant person in general. So not that I would be afraid to travel necessarily, but I might be more hesitant to travel just because if I think a lot of other people are traveling, I might wait. But I think sometimes that backfires. For example, when Galaxy's Edge opened in Disneyland a year and a half ago, I think it opened at the end of May. I think it was Memorial Day weekend of 2019. And then it was open all summer. And a lot of people were talking about how it was a failure because Disney was not getting the numbers that they anticipated. And the crowds were lower all summer. But then later on, all of a sudden things got way busier than they expected. And so what they think happened was a lot of people did the exact same thing I did, which was, yes, I want to go to Galaxy's Edge, but no, I don't want to go when it's super, super busy. So I'll go later. But then enough people thought that it actually was significantly busier later. And it wasn't as busy initially. So part of me also wonders if there might be something like that, where things open up and there's an initial lull where people aren't traveling originally, but they book stuff for maybe 6 months later.
That's what I was trying to say. Was I think all of a sudden everyone's going to be booking.
I see.
I don't think that means they're going next month. They might go but they might book it really quickly.
Yeah. I also read an article this was a couple of months ago. So obviously things change pretty quickly in 2020, but where some travel people were talking about how they're starting to see people who are doing travel plans for 2021 actually spending more money than they normally would and splurging a little bit more on their travel because they didn't do the trip of 2020. So people who tend to travel every year, maybe they do a big trip every year, didn't do their big trip in 2020. So they're going to just take that money and put it together with the 2021 money and do an extra big trip. So I think that might be something that we see for some people as well. I don't know.
Yeah, anyone that didn't lose their job or, different things like that. Because obviously there's going to be other impacts of this year as well.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another thing that I've thought about is, a lot of people are traveling, and people who were traveling maybe didn't spend the money, but we also had a whole lot of people not just lose their jobs, but also get, have reduced wages or reduced hours or whatever if they weren't in a job that was able to continue to pay them consistently for whatever reason. So that's definitely a factor that plays into it. While some people may have more money because they didn't travel, other people will be in the opposite boat.
Totally.
So,
well, and I also wonder, will it change who's traveling? People who have traveled a lot, are there people like that who have liked being home more and who have liked the local trips or the road trips or, the smaller things? And they're like, wow, maybe I could take a break from this. Or also are there people who haven't traveled and haven't thought about it in their lives very much, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I wanted to do this, and I'm going to go take that trip now.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I found a site that lists some advice for planning your 2021 trip.
Okay. Don't do it.
Well, the first thing is be careful. It's
Yeah.
talking about making educated decisions. The world is not off limits, and local economies need your support now more than ever.
That's
But
true.
it's crucial to be responsible and educate yourself on all guidelines, restrictions, and health procedures required along the way. So it said, in other words, 2021 won't be the year for the spur of a moment trip. I disagree with that statement
Yeah.
because I think that normally I plan my trips well far in advance, but I might think like, okay, I think I want to take some time off sometime in the spring, but maybe I do wait and say like, well, let's see what's open. Let's see, can I fly? Can I not
Mhm.
fly? And so I could see that being a reason to do a spur of the moment trip is because you realize that something's open and it's safe to go there and maybe
Mhm.
you get a good deal. So, but the rest of that about being careful, I think is smart. It
Yeah.
also says to plan ahead. Um, here we go. We're jamming 2 years worth of travel into 6 to 9 months, assuming things start picking up in the second quarter of the next year. And
Yeah.
so she says during peak times, flights will be full, hotels fully booked, and car rental companies sold out of vehicles. So if you don't plan, you'll be stuck with another staycation. So this person's assuming that it will boom,
Yeah.
then. Know how COVID affected your destination. Obviously, that's really important. Read the fine print on your travel insurance. I learned that not because
Yeah.
of COVID, but because I canceled a trip last minute a year ago. So
Yeah.
I see that. Expect more lockdowns. That's a good point. Know when to go and when to stay. So it says if there's a vaccine next year, it will not be an instant cure. Some parts of the
Right.
world will recover faster than others.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
that's
very
a good
true.
point. Have a backup plan. 100% agree with that. And then it says the best of travel in 2021. So it says the best airlines are and hotels are the ones with flexible policies.
Yep.
The best travel insurance is the one that includes canceling for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the best plan is one made by a professional. It says this is the time to get a travel advisor.
Yeah.
And so because your agent can help you navigate those uncertain areas. So that's a really good point because
Yeah.
they're going to be well more versed in those. Also, was this written by a travel advisor?
Probably.
So yeah, I
But I
thought that
think
was some
that-
good advice.
But I think that, yeah, I think that's a good point too, is things are changing in travel so fast right now because so many things are changing. The requirements here, or this is in lockdown, or this isn't, or you do have to have this, or you don't have to have this, or this country's open, or this country isn't open, or this one requires a test, or this one does. Like
Yeah.
all those things change so rapidly, and a travel advisor is going to be much more on top of that than any of us are, and they're going to be able to have those resources. And so I think that is a good case for using a travel advisor if that's something that you're able to do and that you're interested in doing. But yeah, I agree that I think a lot of that advice is good advice. I think there's just so much that's up in the air and so much that can change that I think kind of like you have said this before, because unfortunately over the last year, you've learned this,
Yeah.
having those backup plans. I think that's the one that's probably the biggest piece, is to be flexible and be open to things changing, because we really
Mhm.
don't have control. That's one of the things, I'm going to get all philosophical now. That's one of the things that I think 2020 has really showed us. Whether or not we've paid attention to it or not, I'm not sure. But we have this illusion that we really can make plans and that they will come to fruition. And sure, every
Yeah.
once in a while something comes up and it doesn't happen. But for the most part, when we plan to do something, we're able to follow through on it. And this year has shown us that no, that's not really true.
Yeah.
There are so many things that are completely outside of our control that really could happen at any point in time.
Mm-hmm.
We're just lucky enough or privileged enough, or I'm not sure what the right term is, that we don't encounter that as often. But I think there are people who do, and who do have to deal with those challenges much more often. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's really true. I mean, like, And with thinking about travel with that, I like the idea of like what Lisa did. You know, she talked about they were like on plan number 4 is the
Yeah.
trip they ended up taking. But they were like, okay, we know we're taking time off of work on this week. We'll see what we're going to do, but we're going to go somewhere, you know? And so I think that's a fun idea is to try to say like, I think this is where I want to go. Maybe I'll go ahead and request the days off of work. And then this is, you know, like maybe come up with like a plan A and figure out like when would you need to book it by, you know, and then this is plan B and, you know, or things like that. I think knowing when you need to make the decisions is important. Like you with your
Yes.
February trip, you need to know when you need to cancel by if you're going to cancel.
Mm-hmm. All it says on the airline's website is please cancel or modify your itinerary ahead of your departure date if your travel plans have changed.
So like 5 minutes or 5 days.
I don't know.
I guess
At
it's your
least
choice then. That's
on
nice.
here, it doesn't say. I think one of the things that I hope sticks around after COVID is more flexibility of
Oh, yeah.
airlines. I'm not sure it will because I don't know that it's in their best interest, but it is definitely in our best interest. Like I would not have bought this plane ticket if I didn't know that it was as flexible as it was and there was no cancellation fee.
Yeah. Oh, totally. See,
Right?
it might end up being in their best interest because it's in our best interest. You know what I mean? Like it might be something
Potentially.
where like the most successful companies are the ones that keep those flexible
It could
abilities.
be. I mean, I can dream, right?
Yes, you can.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you've talked about before hoping that, you know, planes are cleaner than they had been
Mhm.
before and that sticks around, and we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, I'd love it if they stopped booking middle seats, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh my gosh. That'd be so amazing. That'd be so amazing. You don't have to awkwardly sit next to the stranger for hours.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. We've done it before. We can do it again. Yeah. So, I mean, I think from what I've read, and I'm not deep diving right now on the airline website, but it looks like things are pretty darn flexible right now. They're not putting all these caveats and all of this. Well, unless da 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 da. And I think the reason that airlines feel comfortable doing it, one is because then, yes, people like me will go ahead and buy a ticket, even if they're unsure. But then two, they keep my money.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, I don't get a refund. I just don't get charged a change fee.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they still get my dollars for the flight. And so that I think is in their best interest. And yeah,
Mhm.
who knows? Maybe they will see that it's a good business model to do it that way because
Mhm.
they keep the money regardless,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, Cheryl, I think we got a lot of, I don't knows on what travel is going to be like next year. And obviously there's no way to know until we actually get into 2021. But I will say that one thing about 2021 I have is hope. I think
Mm.
with the, you know, possibility of vaccines being distributed and things maybe opening up a little bit more, some herd immunity, the fact that we might actually get to do some travel before the end of 2021, that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Now, given what everything has happened, I also wouldn't be shocked if something goes completely the wrong direction and that none of us could have predicted yet again. But I think it is reasonable to think that some travel of some form, besides just, you know, the weekend getaway or the road trip, could potentially happen in 2021. And so for those of us who are itching to do travel, I think that is good news, that is definitely possible.
Agreed.
Well, Cheryl, I think instead of doing a wish you were here this week, I think we can do, hey, how do we celebrate New Year's when we're potentially in lockdown or some version of that?
Which is kind of a funny topic for you and I because you and I don't really celebrate New Year's. I mean, we were both
No.
volunteers with a high school youth group for
Yep.
years, and they went to a camp every New Year's.
A camp that you worked at for a number of years
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, and so that was our New Year's, was this
Yep.
big party at a camp with a bunch of high schoolers.
Yep.
And so outside of that camp, I don't think I've ever done anything to even recognize it as a holiday.
Yeah, I think once or twice I may have gotten together with a few friends, but I don't have regular plans because, yeah, most of our kind of establishing adult years, maybe that's the way to phrase that, we're spent, volunteering at this camp
Yeah.
for New Year's. And so, I don't have a lot of New Year's traditions. Growing up, we would watch I think on Nickelodeon, it was the Nick at Night. They would do like an all night
Oh,
classic
cute.
TV marathon something. And we would get
that's
to stay
fun.
up until midnight and do that. Staying up till midnight's not that exciting these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I
'Cause-
actually like the idea of being in bed well before midnight, even on New Year's. So
yeah. And
that's my
for
jam.
me, I'll stay. I mean, by New Year's, I've been not working for almost 2 weeks. So I'm already up until midnight regularly because I'm a night owl.
Yeah.
So if I don't have to get up in the morning, so to me, it's not that exciting. But what do you think? What's something that people could do for fun if they can't do what they normally do for New Year's?
Well, I found a couple different places online that talk about doing some sort of a running challenge, which I think sounds like a funny way to end 2020 is by running away from it. But I've heard of these different, like some of them are like 5K, 10K challenges that are virtual. Not that your running is virtual, but you're not in a crowd of people running a 5K
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder, which kind of also sounds more enjoyable. And so you can register for these different ones online, and then I think you just time yourself and you can post about it. And I think there can be, for people who enjoy group races like that, I think that could be a fun way to kind of have that camaraderie together and do something healthy on New
Yeah.
Year's. That sounds great. So I found one that's on Race Roster, which, no, that's just a generic thing. I don't even know what this one is called. Honestly, Google it. That's how I found them. And what's great is the location doesn't matter.
That's true.
How about you, Ryan? What did you find?
Well, I was looking at different places around the world and how they are celebrating New Year's differently this year. A lot of big cities, both domestically and internationally, do fireworks displays or big get-togethers, or New York has the ball that drops. And most of what I can see, most cities are not doing their events because obviously that would have lots of people very close together, which is what we're trying to avoid these days. But most of them, a lot of the big ones, like London and New York and Sydney, even Vegas, I think, are going virtual, and they're doing it either online or on broadcast television or something like that. So it's possible that you could potentially watch some of these international celebrations from home and be able to see maybe a bunch of different ones, since New Year's happens at different times around the world. That could be a fun thing to try and do, is try and figure out some of these different New Year's fireworks displays or celebrations and kind of maybe do several of those to kind of enjoy New Year's internationally, since we are just in our homes.
So you could binge watch New Year's celebrations.
You could binge watch New Year's celebrations. Yes, that is one option.
I also did find a fun thing online. Last year, we had my stepson over New Year's, and we asked him if he wanted to stay up till midnight. And I don't even think, as a 6-year-old, he fully understood when midnight was. And so like his concept of midnight. And then we were realizing, like, around his bedtime, like, no, that's not going to be a thing. But then also we realized we could like do midnight whenever we want.
Mhm.
And Netflix has all these different kids' New Year's countdowns with their favorite characters. So like King Julian from Madagascar
Oh.
has a dance party, and then they do a countdown. They're all like 60 seconds long, which kind of bums me out because I was hoping for like a 15-minute like
Yeah.
dance party. But you can get a kids' New Year's countdown on Netflix. So
Good
that's
to
kind of
know.
fun.
And you can do it anytime. And if they're young enough, they don't know the difference.
Yep. Yeah. So, and in the end, I don't even think Jack cared about New Year's in the first place. So it didn't really
Mhm.
matter. So it's just like, okay, well, cool. But also, I guess if you're on the West Coast, you could watch the East Coast feed and
Yep.
count down to 9 p.m.
And I know people who do that when it's not COVID too.
There you go.
You know, like you're not wanting to stay up until midnight. You'd rather be in bed. So I know people who, yeah, they watch the live ball drop in New York and then they're like, great, Happy New Year. And then they go to bed.
Yep. I get it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what we got for New Year's information and our thoughts about next year and what that might bring for travel. It'll be interesting a year from now to find out what things have actually been. And so when we do a recap a year from now, it'll be real interesting to see what 2021 will be like for travel. Because a year ago from now, we had no idea what was in store
Nope.
for us.
Sure didn't.
Well, we would love it if you would follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on 2021 travel? What do you have advice for planning ahead? Do you have any interesting insights for us, or do you just have fun predictions? We would love to hear it.
Yeah, or if you have plans, have you made 2021 travel plans? Love to hear what that is and what your reasoning was for making those plans or not. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, also known as 406-POD-TIMWE. Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it. Share about this episode on social media and subscribe to make sure that you do not miss any of our new episodes in the new year.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
That is going to bring not only 2020 to the end, but our podcast to its conclusion for this year. So until next time and until next year, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be